It's time now for a look at in local news. In the news, we have more from Tuesday's Wayne County Board of Education work session, and we begin with more from former CFO Tony Williams' report given Tuesday at the meeting. She was hired by the Wayne County Board of Education as a consultant to come in and review the Board of Education and school systems' financial budgets and audits and provide them with a report on what she found. Well, she came in with a ton of information and numbers, and let's just say it was not a pretty picture. Here's part of her report from Tuesday's meeting.
So the reports presented to the Department of Audits had significant errors in capital projects expenditures, contracts payable, and retainage payable. Those were understated in FY22 by $1.9 million, and then we all know the retention bonuses paid to the contractors because I think I've watched some board meetings where that was discussed. FY23 audit issues, again, the significant deficiency in internal controls over financial reporting was a repeat finding. The reports presented to the Department of Audits had significant errors in the federal revenue recognition. That was where we set up an accounts receivable for ESSER 2 funds, I believe. And you have those funds, in order to be an accounts receivable, you have to receive those funds within 120 days of the end of the fiscal year, and those funds were received after that time period. So that's why it's called a revenue recognition period. Those funds were received after that. So they were set up as an accounts receivable on the books and should not have been. They probably should have been referred to as deferred revenue. There was a misclassification of contracts payable. That's when you pay your contractor for work performed in June, but you wrote the check after the end of June. And I think it was just recorded as accounts payable instead of contracts payable. But because of the dollar amount, it was considered material to the financial statements, so that's why it was a finding. Retainage payable was not calculated correctly, $134,000. Again, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, the debt service was closed with a negative fund balance. Debt service is the fund that we use to pay the principal and interest payment on the bonds. So you have a debt service fund, you pay the principal and interest out of that, but you have the long-term debt fund that keeps up with the principal balance. The net position was calculated incorrectly, and the school district did not comply with GASB 84. GASB 84 requires the school district to analyze all of their accounts for any fiduciary accounts. Those are just funds held for others. And because the Family Connections was being reported in the general fund and not its own fund, then they were considered fiduciary in nature, and so the district was cited with not complying with GASB 84.
And once again, that's just a portion of her report to the board. At one point, she mentioned that 1 year the difference between what was reported in a fund balance and what was actually in the fund balance was a difference of more than $4 million. At Tuesday's board meeting, no one commented on Williams' report except to tell her thank you and tell her she did an excellent job. Board member Todd Wise did ask her was she provided all the information she asked for to do her report, and her answer was no. After her report, the board went into an executive session, and minutes into the executive session, the superintendent exited the executive session, never returned while board members remained behind closed doors for approximately 20 minutes, and when they reconvened, again, no comments about Tony Williams' report and no comment about why the superintendent was asked to leave the executive session. Wednesday, I reached out to several board members for comments on Tony Williams' report to the board. Chairman Bruce Harris responded. He says, quote, I think that Mrs. Williams did a great job. She did what we asked her to do to help us know and learn how we can be better. We have a lot to be better at. My hope is that once we get through this and come out the other side, that it will be a better system. Board member Tina Moser responds, I'm concerned about some of the findings. I think Ms. Williams did a thorough job, and I'm looking forward and seeing the errors corrected. Again, those comments from two board members about the former CFO's report on Tuesday, which shed light to a lot of issues and problems with the school system's handling of budget and audits. Tony Williams made it clear that she found nothing illegal or unethical, but she pointed out some very disturbing information. Again, Tuesday after the report and the board members made any comments, we've learned that there will be a scheduled called board meeting at 4:30 on Friday afternoon, but we've not received any official notice as of yet. They said it will be sent out sometime this afternoon. The question is what will be on that agenda for Friday afternoon, a football Friday with the home game at JC Stadium. Other big story Tuesday, the board made some decisions regarding the new Ag building and the new ROTC building, which has to be built by the school board. which board member Sharon Daniel was insisting on a firing range in the ROTC facility, which added close to $1 million to the price tag. Here was part of that discussion about the firing range at the Tuesday board meeting.
I coach my son in football, so I'm telling you that there's not very often, unless you're dealing with wide receiver and cornerbacks, that you're going the full length of the field to practice. They have what they need adequately. And it's not about football. Right now, it's about, we've got another group that needs something, and we need to take care of that group just like we take care of everybody else. And not only is that group going to be able to utilize that, you're going to have some other groups on the dates that they're not using it, going to be able to use that facility.
We are taking care of these people, but not at the expense of them wanting everything they need. It is what we can afford to
Not
be.
what they need.
That's right. It is what we can give them to afford them the opportunity. They have nothing now, but yet all of a sudden it's a grand hodge that we need to spend $3 million when we don't need to spend $3 million because you are passionate about having this range in this building when it doesn't need to be there. I don't care how you look at football fields, baseball fields, soccer fields. If they didn't need it, that's fine. But this range is not an option in this ROTC building.
But they will also be able to have an opportunity to drill inside their own facility. It's not just about the rain, it's about the heat, but like I said, I'm also looking at that we can utilize this space for other things and other needs.
And once again, Tuesday night, the board took a vote, and they voted 3-2 to do away with the firing range in the ROTC project, again, to the tune of $900,000 savings. Board member Sharon Daniel and Bruce Harris voted no. Should be pointed out that when the board met with their ROTC instructor, Mr. Marcus, he told the board at the meeting that he did not see the need for the firing range, but Sharon Daniel insisted she wanted the firing range. And again, Mr. Marcus simply looked at the board and simply stated, quote, "It's not needed," end quote. Again, the vote Tuesday 3-2 to eliminate the firing range from the proposed ROTC project. Again, it'll save the school board $900,000. As far as the ag building, on Tuesday, a unanimous vote to build a 22,000 square foot building in the price range of $5 million. We'll be back with more news after this word from our sponsor of the commercial messages, so please stay tuned. Other news, there's a community-wide blood drive today at the VFW Day, Post 4583, Meeting Hall, 436 Project Street. Again, walk-ins are welcome. The blood drive today from 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. Again at the local VFW Post 4583. Qualifying for the Odom City election ended Wednesday afternoon, and Greg Leggett qualified to run for mayor. Again, he's been acting as mayor in Odom, Georgia, ever since the resignation of former Mayor Greg Rozier. Joshua Griffin qualified for the vacant city council seat. Again, those are the only two qualified. The special election, Greg Leggett has called for a special meeting on August 21st at 7 p.m. at Odom to set the tentative millage rate. Other four city council members in Odom are Kevin Higgins, Kathy Rozier, Ron Sluter, and Clay Teston. Jesup City Council met Tuesday, and at the meeting, City Council member Mike Deal was presented with her certificate from the Georgia Municipal Association for completion of training. Council voted 5-1 in favor of the rezoning request on the agenda, 1797 South First Street from R2 to C3. Commissioner Tim Cockfield voted no. The board approved the new Wayne County and Jesup fire map. An agreement has been reached with CSX and the city, which will result in CSX moving its lay-down yard from the downtown area. Motion was made, and this also passed 5-1, with Commissioner Tim Cockfield voting no, saying he believed the agreement would reach between CSX and the city will cost the city money. Mayor of Jesup says the agreement will allow CSX to move all their railroad ties and other items stored along the tracks in downtown Jesup between East and West Broad Streets to property further south. City Commissioner Mike Deal says it's a good deal. He says it will clean up the downtown area. He says something the city's been trying to do for 50 years. The board discussed making a food truck food court at the farmers market. As the city owns the market, they believe it'll be a win-win for the city and a win for those food vendors and those who visit the market. City of Jesup will be taking over the downtown Christmas parade as the Chamber of Commerce has passed that project on to the city of Jesup. City set its millage rate. They lowered it from last year's 4.7 to this proposed year 4.092. And after an executive session, they announced that city manager is allowed to raise the starting pay for a new captain in the fire department and a new captain in the police department due to the experience of the candidates. And that's a look at your Tuesday City of Jesup Council meeting. We'll be back with some final news notes after this word from our sponsor of the commercial messages, so please stay tuned. Final notes and news. Wayne County Superior Court was in session this week with Judge Harrison on the bench on Monday. Former Wayne County High School ROTC instructor Harold Douglas Hill pled guilty to false imprisonment, sexual battery, and battery in the assault of one of his female students. Incident occurred on the campus of Wayne County High School, and Hill was released of his duties at the high school and arrested by law enforcement. Again, pleads guilty in court Monday in front of Superior Court Judge Anthony Harrison. Judge sentenced Hill to a total of 10 years, with the first 4 years to be served in prison and the remainder on probation. He was also ordered to surrender his teaching and an instructor certificate and could not ever teach school or instruct anyone under the age of 18. Again, arrested by law enforcement. Again, pleads guilty in court Monday in front of Superior Court Judge Anthony Harrison. In other news, at the court this week, again, it was announced a date for the case of the state of Georgia versus Atlantis Paul Brown. That has been set. Jury selection will take place on August 26th. Brown faces charges of malice murder, felony murder, and other charges in the shooting death of Zachary Johnson. Shooting occurred back on February 3rd of 2023. And WIFO-FM was on hand for the courtroom during the bond hearing, which bond was denied in the case. Brown's remained in custody since his arrest, and Judge Anthony Harrison will be presiding over the case. Jury selection again scheduled for August 26th. In that court hearing for that 11-year-old juvenile who faces criminal charges of involuntary manslaughter and simple battery in connection with the death of 8-year-old Noah Bush, that is set for August 22nd in courtroom C. That's going to do it for latest in local news. Sports comes your way in a few minutes. Bob Morgan saying have a great day.